Game started.
Wrath of Khan, Star Trek fan. Let's see, how about just e4, e5? Get some kind of traditional opening here. I played a couple of weird gambits lately with e4, e5, but I think I will go back to playing normal stuff. Tough to decide, e5. Well, let's see, go to the choices. Yeah, knight f3 is the main move. And let's just go with knight c6. Bishop e2, oh, that's unusual. Normally the bishop comes out to c4 or b5. This, the e pawn is loose. But he'll be able to castle easily. But let's attack the e-pawn, see if he defends it with... if he plays d3 now, it keeps his bishop locked in, so he's got kind of a cramped position. And so why don't I play somewhat ambitiously? I want to develop my bishop outside the pawn chain and not suffer a pin with the knight. And then castle. Yes, this is almost like a position you could get with colors reversed. There must be a tempo in here somewhere. I think I'm happy to keep the bishop on this diagonal. If he put his bishop on d2 to block my bishop, it's not doing so much on that diagonal. But here, it can continue to pressure the king side. Of course, he can play knight to a4 to go after my bishop, or he can play knight to d5. Knight to d5, however, I can take. Can I take? Not really. If I take, he takes my pawn, then I move my knight, attacking his pawn. He can take my e-pawn then, and I can take his d-pawn. So knight takes, pawn takes, knight e7. You could just defend it and have this massive pawn roller here, which would be a bit dangerous for my bishop. Interesting. Is there a way for me to put pressure on his knight? Maybe I should play knight to d4. So I'm attacking his knight over here. I'll let him take my bishop. And I want to be able to take back with the h-pawn. The other idea would have been to play a-pawn rather. The other idea would have been to play a6, but then if he took, I would have to take with the c-pawn, which would not be as favorable for me. So he took off the bishop and he took off the knight. So he's got the bishop pair. There's usually some advantage. And he's liquidating my advanced pawn, which is also a doubled pawn. So it's not the worst thing in the world to liquidate it. But if I take, it gives him a good square for his bishop, a nice diagonal here. So is there some alternative to taking? I can defend it with c5. He takes, I take, and I have two pairs of doubled pawns. That's kind of ugly looking. But I will have a pawn on d4 still, cramping his structure a bit. And I can play d5. Let's see, d5, he takes, I take, he takes, I take. That's maybe a little better. But if I play d5 and he pushes, I have to move my knight, and that's not so great. Okay, I'm going to defend it this way. Try and maintain a pawn on d4 if I can. Of course, if he takes my c-pawn first, that helps. Yeah, so he should take the d-pawn and give me these a pair of isolated pawns. This ugly structure. So I still want to play d6 or d5 here. I'm not quite sure which at this point. d5, and he pushes. Then the knight can go to back to d7, but that blocks the bishop. I guess I will play somewhat conservatively with d6, just getting my bishop developed. And now I will push on with d5. And the knight can drop back to d7 without blocking the bishop. Okay, that was pinning the pawn. So let's unpin. Just gives me more firepower on the d file, so that's not bad for me. So d5 here. If he takes, I can take with either the knight or the bishop. Maybe the knight is the more active piece there. And if he pushes, then I will play knight to e7 and try and recapture or just win that pawn. So push, push. So d5, e5, knight d7. He can play f4 defending it. And then I can play knight to c5. Looks like a good square for the knight. So let's do this. Let's do this. Always going there with the bishop. That's interesting. So I'll put my bishop on f5. It's hitting his d-pawn, and it's attacking the e-pawn. The d-pawn, of course, is defended, but maybe later I will play knight to c5 here. I'll have two attackers on it, and it would still be defended, but maybe the pressure will eventually get uncomfortable. We'll see. So I'm expecting f5, f4 rather, just defending that pawn. It goes there. Well, if I trade, queen comes out and then I grab a pawn, and he grabs this pawn, but not right away because his bishop is hanging. So bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes. Then his queen can grab on d4. There's some other way to play it. Maybe queen out. Bishop takes, queen takes, because this pawn is still hanging. But I need to defend the bishop. But if he trades off the light squared bishop, maybe this helps me a bit. So I'm still threatening to take here. He can still play f4 to defend e5. But I have also the pressure on d3 now. So we'll see if he wants to trade his nice bishop for this knight, or if he wants to defend. He can play rook f3 to defend here. And they went for the trade. Okay. So now I like this better for me. I have this mass of central pawns, and he has this weakness on d3. So maybe rooks on the c file and the d file, and then push these pawns forward. And then in the meanwhile, my pawn on b6 holds back his a pawn. So maybe I just immediately rook to I have to defend this pawn anyway. Rook to d8. Yeah, rook d8 immediately defends the d pawn, and I'll need to play rook c8 before I can play c4 here. c4 takes, and queen takes is possible. C4 takes. Yeah, I guess that is possible. So if I have rook c8, he has rook c1. And how do I increase pressure after that? Maybe, I could even consider playing f6 here, attacking the advanced e-pawn, and leave the rooks where they are. Oh, we'll see what his move is. Well, he's thinking. Yeah, just rook c1 is what I would play here. Get the rook over, try and put pressure on my pawns, maybe push the a pawn, and then if I take, the c pawn falls, that kind of thing. Oh, I can take with the rook, though. So moving this rook, yeah, sort of gives up on the a pawn a bit. Okay, so now it's my choice of what to do here. Rook c8 and c4 is a reasonable plan, but he can counter it with his rook. Oh, he would have to play rook c2 now. That might get interesting. Pawn push, pawn takes, and my queen is on his rook, but it's defended. Pawn takes, he has to take with the rook. Rook takes, queen takes. Then I can push this pawn. Maybe I get a passed pawn. Maybe it's worth it. Central pawns can be very dangerous, even more so when they're passed pawns. So if he defends with rook c2 and I push, this would be a pawn sack, basically. Oh, he attacks my queen. Not a bad idea. Get it off this good diagonal that it's on. Although perhaps it loosens up his king side a bit. Okay, well let's drop back here. Yeah, rook c2. So now I still think I want to push. So pawn here. Pawn takes, rook takes. Queen takes, and then I push the pawn, and he can get a rook in front of it. I can check. I wonder if there's a way to set this up. How about if I actually double on the c file? Because I wasn't seeing enough compensation. The check leads to a queen trade. Maybe I get my rook on a good square. But not a lot happening. So once again, I'm threatening to push c4, and he stops it once again. So c4, pawn takes, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, queen takes, and then pawn push. But now it's just a queen and a passed pawn. King over push, king over queen. So I'm a little bit faster, right? Push, takes, 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 takes. Queen takes, push to e3, king to d3, king to f2, push to d2. The king cannot get in front of the pawn. So he would have to, he would end up with an awkward queen position, basically. Because he has to maneuver his queen to get in front of the pawn, if he wants to win a pawn here. And of course, if he doesn't take, then what is he doing with all his pieces? So a pawn sack that yields a queen and pawn ending where I'm a pawn down, but my pawn that I have is passed. So it's like I'm 4 against 3 on this side and 2 against 1 on this side. So I'm -1 here, but +1 in the middle. He did not take. So that's interesting. If I take, is there something clever here I can do? If I take and he takes with a queen, I take, he takes, I take, he takes. All right, not a lot going on. So the simplest thing is just to push, of course. So not sacrificing a pawn and getting a protected passed pawn for the endgame. So I may need to speed up my play a little bit. I'm down to 2 minutes here. His queen is creeping in. Ah, okay, yeah, he's going after this pawn, which is a bit underprotected. So, can I get back on this? Maybe I can take advantage of his weak king side here. I can't really defend these pawns here. My queen's just not in a spot to defend d4 there. A bit unfortunate. So I'm trying to open up something over here, try to cause a little trouble on the other side of the board. Yeah, he had central pawns too. These two are preventing my queen from getting to good squares. Like I would like to have my queen here or here.
Check.
At least I get this pawn with check. And then this pawn is no longer hanging. Maybe I can defend this pawn too. This pawn is loose. But if the queen grabs this pawn on b6, I can grab the pawn on d3. Probably his best bet is to chase my queen some more here. But at some point I can just push this pawn. This is actually pretty dangerous. So like rook to f1, pawn here, rook takes, pawn queens would check, but he doesn't have to play that way. After rook f1, pawn to c2, he can take the pawn first, sacking his rook, and take my queen, and then all I have is a few checks. I don't have something good there. Yeah, my opponent has played this well. So rook f1 is going to chase my queen away then. Can't go along this diagonal. Can't go this way. It could go to... oh, we decided to grab. Okay. That, I think, is better for me. Because my queen over here is supporting these central pawns. I think these guys are more dangerous than his flank pawns. That's my opinion here. So I'm just going to push on with c2 and then queen to d1 check. Should win something. Rook takes queen. Pawn takes, and I get a new queen, so should win a rook. And if I push the pawn and he takes, then I can just take it. Oh no, that's interesting. He's trying to destroy my king safety. He's trying to disrupt my king safety. So I'm going to take, and after he takes with check, I'm going to block with the rook.
Check.
Because I need to keep some defense of g2 here. Oh, I can't do that. I cannot do that. Took the...
check.
Move that too fast. Okay. Rook here, he's got rook there. I mean, king here, he's got rook there. King here. Well, let's try it. Queen here is covered. Rook here, king here, rook back. King back. Not sure.
Check.
Okay, so I have a check here that picks up his rook. If he allows it.
Check.
Of course. Okay, so he's just going to keep chasing me this direction. Not a bad strategy.
Server announcement.
He's got a check on e1. Could be useful.
Check.
Check there. Yeah, that drives me to the e file. Well, at least I don't have to think a lot about these moves.
Check.
Aha. And that also leaves me with only one move. I don't see the blow by which he's going to put me away. Although he's got his queen in position to protect this square e3, so I'm going to have to check and take rook here. I just went for the pawn. Let's see. So I can take his queen, take this pawn, and take this pawn. I wonder if there's any drawing chances here. Not really. Okay, I'm going to resign here. I think he played a good game, and he won it fair and square, so I will upload
Black
this and
resigns.
do a post-mortem. I think mainly I just dropped a rook at the wrong time. Otherwise, it was an interesting game. So see you guys later. Bye.